You can hear me? Great. So thanks, Giorgio. My time to welcome you and to thank you for being here today. I'm Giovanni. I'm the co-founder and chapter leader of the Speculative Futures Milan. For those of you unfamiliar with the chapter, we are part of a global community with a quarter in San Francisco. The network is made of 50 chapters, sort of. Located in different places, so North America, Central America, South America, US, Asia, and Europe, of course. We started in 2019 doing events. For the first one, we had the Simone. I was in China back then. It was 2019, I guess, pre-COVID. And since then, we have organized 3 events with the idea of promoting future literacy in local communities. And yeah, that's the end of the shameless promotion. Great. So when we started preparing this event with Domus, we said, hey, since it is about AI, it will be interesting to involve some of this technology in the preparation of the event. So we asked everyone's most loved generative AI to prepare the email we used to invite and challenge our panelists. And the AI tool worked so hard, producing several drafts. And after 5 minutes, we found a very cool template. And yeah, it was cool. So we shipped it, basically. And it worked quite well if we are here all together today. So well done. And jokes aside, as Giorgio was saying, the goal of this roundtable is to explore the impact of AI or generative AI on design. But we are going to do it in a different way. So that's why we use speculation. Of course, I mean, to avoid to follow the hype. So please don't fire your designers yet. And also we avoid, I mean, to fall in love with technologies and technology advancement. So no one, I guess, is gonna talk you about, I don't know, the latest feedback plugin with AI inside, so you can use to create crazy applications. So I hope, I mean, I don't know, we'll see that later. And yeah, but we would like to use this time to show you multiple directions and trajectories and possibilities, and to use those to explore implication and consequences. Things that usually you don't see when you consider technology and technological advancements. I know that it sounds a bit cryptic, but we'll get there eventually, so be patient. A bit of housekeeping before kicking off the session. So we'll start with a quick introduction so you get to know a bit about our panelists a bit more. Then we will share with you scenarios they've prepared to question our assumptions and support the debate. We'll dig a bit more into those, and after that there will be half an hour or so for your questions, so you can jump in and contribute to the conversation. And yeah, that's it for now on my side. So I guess we can start with you, Alexandra. So you go introducing yourself, and then we follow clockwise.
Can you hear me well? Yes? All good. I can hear me, so I think then it's fine. Hello, everyone, and very nice to see everyone here, especially on this weather, as we all see. I'm Alexandra Mihai. I'm a UX designer, but I started as an industrial designer a long time ago. And I think my last decade was full around AI, automations, and how to make things more efficiently. I've worked at UN Studio as a computational designer, so I had a little bit of architecture and how to automate and make products more efficient, but physical products. And then I turned to digital design. Now I work as a principal product designer at UiPath, who is a leading company for creating software for automating repetitive tasks. So if you want and are interested about that, we can talk more later. And lately, I've been also teaching and mentoring young designers to become UX designers as well. And you will hear a little bit about how I do that and what ideas I try to inspire them in a few moments. And that's me.
Hi everyone, my name's Tobias Revell, which are the words on the bottom of the screen there. I'm Design Futures lead at Arup, so I work in the foresight team of Arup, which is a global engineering company thinking about the next sort of 30 years or so of technology. I'm the least talented designer on this panel, but I'd probably say I'm in the B plus range overall, like in a global context. My world of AI is because my PhD is in design's role in the social construction of AI, so I basically look at the way that design is implicated and used to tell particular stories or imaginaries or narratives about AI futures, and I started that in 2017 and was looking to having a nice tidy wrap up about summer of 22, and then everyone decided they were going to release a bunch of products to the market, which really changed my plans quite significantly. But yeah, that's it from me.
Hi, I'm Viraj. I'm a designer, technologist, and a futurist. These are three words that I've chosen quite carefully. I've ached over them, but I'm settled on them from now. It might change next year. So I work at a design agency called Fjord, which has now become Accenture Som. I've been with them over 4 years. I was in their Stockholm studio for 2.5 years, and now I'm in their London studio. Over there, I'm also the Design Futures community of practice lead, which means that when we have projects that have to do with futures, there's sort of a global panel of experts who look at all of these projects together, and then we collate all different frameworks, so on and so forth. I also teach at the Royal College of Art. I teach speculative design on second-year master's projects. And I guess the bigger reason why I might be invited here, unless it's entirely a mistake, is I write and draw a cartoon called Eliza the Ghost in Every Machine, which is a cartoon about a machine consciousness, which is essentially the manifestation or sort of personification of an AI. And it's been going on for 2 years. And through that, I try to think of how our future might be when we start living with machines so much. So that's my introduction. Pleasure to be here.
Nice. As the last one, I'm Simone, Rebaudengo. I'm clearly the resident Italian in this panel. So I'm here to protect Italian design from AI, I guess. Tough one, very tough one, no pressure. No, let's kill it. Done. So I'm director, one of the directors at Oyo Studio. There is a design studio based pretty much all around Europe. We are actually 2 years ago when we founded it, we said we are a studio of humans and machines. So we actually are probably the first design studio that ever has a bot on LinkedIn. So if you check Robbie, Oyo is actually the first non-human that you could hire, but he's not going to answer to you. Unless we're somewhere there. I'm a product designer, interaction designer. Been working a lot in the field of future products, but also recently with Oyo we did a lot of work around AI and co-creation of products. We did a very complex process to make spoons with AI. And actually that was before. Now it's very easy to generate with text. We actually did it the hard way, and I'm not going to talk about it, but I think I'm really interested actually in tonight talking a little bit about how our practice might change when we're actually collaborating with machines. And without further ado, otherwise I'm going to say something more, and that is completely out of...
That was mine. Thank you for stealing it. Yeah, so Alessandra, I guess we can start with the scenario. So you remember the button, no?
Yeah, I know the button. So if something goes wrong, blame it on me. So yes, this is me, and I will guide you today in a few minutes, because we don't have much. No pressure, no pressure. I want to inspire you and also try to generate questions on 3 topics. These are my scenarios. So I will start with the first one. And for the ones who are familiar with the website, we are now on Domus Academy Milano website, but we are a little bit in the future. So it's not today. Imagine we are, let's say, maybe 3 years from now, or maybe less, depends how fast the robots move. We'll see from here. And I am the persona of a student, so I'm looking now to enroll into becoming a designer. And especially, I think it's important to think as a digital designer. So a person who wants now to create digital products that have interfaces, that also have an experience behind. So what do I see? We still have the classics, design, fashion, business experience, but somewhere I actually saw that there is now a semester in prompt design. So what does this, this sounds familiar, maybe ChatGPT 3, 4, somewhere around that. Now I think it's important to understand that if in the past it was very important to learn also hard skills. So for example, as a UX designer, you need to know Figma. As we were saying, you need to generate interfaces. Now the semester in prompt design will actually have a focus more on communication. So learning how to communicate your ideas in order to create the experiences, both visually, but also as a process. And how to provide a complete solution to improve your daily life. So this would be the prompt design semester. If you want to enroll, please talk to the board. Now I will build a little bit about on the first one. And I want you to imagine that you have the power, right? So you just learned that it's so easy to create solutions. You just need to be a very good prompt designer. And imagine that everyone in this room got actually the diploma. So here is our word. We can all create ideas and create solutions every day. And the best example that I can think of is whenever my grandma has a problem, I always try to think of a solution to help her. But imagine this time we can actually do it ourselves and it generates seconds. We already know that there is a lot of improvements on also the coding and implementing side. So for us as designers, especially digital designers, it's going to take seconds or not, I would say minutes, let's say minutes, if not seconds, to actually generate complete solutions. So just some questions that I would like you to think about is, what would be the consequences on that? It's going to be, we're going to have a lot of solutions available on the market, but the AI and the data sets will actually take the data sets that we all get from. So think about creativity. How can we actually make the difference between our solutions? Who's going to be better? And then also following on that, what tools or what additional things we can use for that, and what decisions do we need to take into account? Imagine this would be our next Figma plugin that you actually inject into your tool. But this time, it's not only you that takes decision, but it's also the AI that takes decisions for you. Or it's actually asking you to balance it. Because it's very easy for us to say, I want an app that it's blue and then it's very good for investing, or it can make the flow. But how about other aspects such as, is it ethical or does it make more money? Is it niche, or can it be an app, or can it be a process that I put it on TikTok in a few seconds? More than that, can it be unique, or can I actually just make it more trendy? So I imagine that in the future, we will be able to make use of that and also make more good, make solutions more practical and easily available. But at the same time, we also need to think about the consequences and how we can balance that. And that would be me.
Thank you. Anyone want to comment on this one? Yeah, maybe Simone? Yeah.
I can. No. Okay, it sounds all, but we actually decided before.
No spoiler.
I mean, come on. We're all about showing what's behind the machine. I'm gonna, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's be transparent. No, I was thinking. So first, I think that if I was in you, I would have that course next semester of prompt design. I mean, it's already happening. I know. No, but because I think that one, you know, because we're talking about 3-4 years, but I'm also thinking, yeah, maybe that's next year. And also it's interesting because it's like it's about communication and it's about language and, you know, like how do you design courses for better language for design? Is it in English? Is it in your language? That's also going to be interesting because, I mean, I'm Italian, I use English, but you know, now I see that prompting is, you can have gestures in there, of course, yeah. Okay, that's another project. But no, I mean, that's going to be really interesting, and even what interface is it going to create for that, you know, is it just going to be text? So, I mean, there is a lot of questions, so I find this extremely interesting. And on the latest one, the plugin, I think I really like the fact that we need sliders and buttons for AI. Like we need things that you can control. And that was before with smartness. That everything is this is smart,
Mechanical.
and now this is like generated. It's good. But where do I tweak? How do I tweak? You already have some variables in the system today. For instance, like weirdness, you can tweak, like temperature. But then how do we create new interfaces that kind of translate other, for instance, variables, other things that you might want to do within those systems? And so it's going to also open up, like, can we as interface people also influence how those models will be made in order to allow this to happen? Because those models today, you cannot really do that. But then, what's going to happen? You're going to have multiple models with multiple data sets that then, based on how you tweak, you're going to take training data from one or the other. And so I think this we need, definitely. So thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Let's sell it to Figma.
No Figma.
Where
no
is Figma? No Figma here.
I thought there was something interesting in this image, and that is the fact that the slider goes between ethical and makes money. And I wonder if you can have both and what that looks like.
I was wondering the same also when I did the image, because I tried to choose quite carefully the opposites. But somehow when I wrote ethical first, because this was the one that I wrote, I had this thought in my mind that I should balance it with money, because usually this is what companies do. And we kind of know that non-ethical practices usually have an eye for profit. So it might be true that you could do both in the future, but maybe we can get the help of AI to help us do that.
Yeah, you need a sub-menu then from ethics about, what. Then you open up the whole point about ethics of AI, which we're not going to talk about today.
Not today.
Who knows? We can try. We can change program, yeah. Next scenarios?
Oh, it's me.
Tobias.
All right.
No black button.
Don't press the black button. Is
No.
that right?
Press the black button.
I'm really tempted to press the black button.
Try.
All right. Sorry, I had to make some notes because this is such an auspicious occasion. 1 second. Let me get these up here. So, it's really fantastic to be here with my esteemed and unesteemed colleagues, both all celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Pieten Pieterkoop Petean Lend. We can now look back on that event and see its significance and see the point that design was broken from the instrumental practices of the pre-2030s into its current landscape. But in the kickoff to this conference, I think it's really important to just reflect on that history and set the stage so that we can all remember why we're here and how we're in this current zone of practice. So, the late 2020s saw the continued encroachment of so-called AI systems, broken, janky, fractious things, represented more of the state of industry and capital than of the technology, intentionally hobbling and fragmenting the design ecology to drive competition and profitability. A world of competing systems with governments, universities, and representative bodies unable to catch up to even try and put out the fire. The lack of regulation meant output data was refed into models, and like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, the aesthetic world flattened, and it became more targeted. For instance, the claim made often by AI aficionados to serve bespoke individual websites to users based on their browser history seemed like a great opportunity. But when the profit motive remained, driving down choice and forcing behaviors, they became variations of personalized honey traps, not serving the needs of users, but the desires of the businesses who can now build the personal hells for millions of people. In response, a proto-synthetic aesthetic style emerges, embracing flatness and uniformity, what Gen Z call a post-normcore blandcore, removing design or creative input as a critique to the end of design itself. Obviously, at the same time, this so-called democratization of design was really a monopolization. The same handful of companies profiting while touting accessibility and inclusivity and reaping enormous profits while enabling the creativity of others. As a result, the nihilism towards the creative and critical practices that Silicon Valley have long evidenced through their obsession with automating art, writing, poetry, film, and music came to a head. People claiming to be designers were publicly ridiculed in the press with the same hysteria as people who referred to the digital in the 2020s. At the same time, a Jevons paradox of design kicked in. Massive complexity and hyper-personalization increased the rate of design to a point where no one could decipher how anything was built or designed in the first place, able to redesign, repurpose, or control it. A complete acceleration of aesthetics, engineering, and technology interaction beyond any human comprehension or meaning. But late in 2034 is when we can trace the beginning of the movement, to the very last patent. It was accepted by the US Patent Office on November 11, 2034, and marks the end of intellectual property. Design bots, for a decade by this point, have been paired up with IP trolls to bombard patent systems with automated designs, with the ambition of suing people in the future for profit. This last one, the Petten Pieterkurt Patein Lend, was probably ignored by the frustrated patent offices in the same way as all of the generated synthetic content dragging the design economy down. But now we can look back and recognize its incredible significance. Taking inspiration and eponymously named, the Petten Pieterkurt... Dropping out of character a second, I wish it was a better name. The Petten Pieterkurt Patein Lend appear. Scholars to this day, as we know, debate whether it's a person, a group, or a bot. And as we now know, that was never even a question. And so to begin events, I feel like it's worth reminding ourselves of the Patein Manifesto. The hard way. If magic is the enchantment of work, then we must disenchant work and make it meaningless. Overfit. Throw spikes across the bell curve. We must consciously refuse the pattern. We must be smaller than a pixel. Seize the means of abduction. Counter probable scenario plans, crush the future's cone under the weight of impossibility. Benchmark you. We are the benchmark. Dominate the curve. Drive down the normal. Anti-promissory. Reject what is promised. Design must turn the present into the undeterminate past of multiple presents. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to begin this conference and hear these wonderful reflective papers.
Cool.
Don't press the black button.
Okay. Yeah, Viraj, your turn. Yeah.
Nice. So much to think about and so much to unpack. I guess let's start with the first one. What I like here is I was reminded of the UI that we see in Amazon, or the decisions made by Netflix, for that matter, where they use AI in order to decide what to show on their screens first and how to construct and compose their content so that it can be viewed as much as possible, and it's all meant for money. That's what I was reminded of when you spoke of this. And the other thing that you spoke, which I found interesting, was democratization and monetization. So you think it's democratization, but it is monetization for a few corporate masters, as it were, which makes me think that when it's time to design these things, it makes me think that this is why we need the human in there. This is why we need strong design principles.
I think you pissed off Amazon.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was that.
So, what do you think about that? Do you think it is? Do you think having design principles and being grounded in good design principles would help us not get to a dystopian place like that?
Expand on what you mean.
So we think that. Is the sound okay? Everyone's not deaf. Okay, cool. When we think that there's a regurgitation of online ways in which the online world is constructed, and it's all constructed by AI. There's a blandness in the aesthetic, as you pointed it out. There's monetization. Do you think there is a place for human designers to think about design principles, to think about grounding themselves in ethics, and would that help not get to a place like that one?
I come back to a study that was done in 2014 of pop music by some Spanish researchers a lot. So these researchers, this is real, this isn't fictional, this is real. These it's hard to know with me, I know, but I'll tell you if it's a lie. These Spanish researchers wanted to answer this question of whether music really did sound the same, right? So people were going, does pop music sound the same? All pop music sounds the same, does it really? So they downloaded and studied it, the data behind, I think, the top 30 hits of the last 50 years up to that point, right? And they analyzed the timbres and pitches and lengths and chord progressions and speed and everything else. And the result was, yes, it is. Pop music is starting to sound the same. It's starting to homogenize around a formula. And the reason for that is a thing they call the Shazam effect, which is this idea that record producers had so much data on what people were listening to, they were just reproducing what people were already listening to because they knew it would be effective. So the same speeds and timbres and structures and things like that. And so you end up with this very flat curve of very similar music that starts to emerge. And the visualizations in this paper are quite good because they just demonstrate exactly how that happens. But on the other side of it, you have the spike, because the ability to make music more cheaply and efficiently through software that you can do on your laptop, through being able to share it through things like MySpace and whatnot, as they were going on in the early 2000s, and then later being able to set up Spotify pages, meant at the same time, at the other end, you had this enormous diversification of genres and people having more access to different types of music than ever, and lots of new music occurring. And I think that's probably, to quote Bruce Sterling, what happens to musicians happens to everyone. And that's probably my doomy prediction of design, is you'll end up with a very long, flat curve of automated sameness, and then a vast diversity at the other end for the 5% of people who go to things like Simone and do think about design and do think about ethics and critical questions. But for the people who are, running a shop and just want a new website made, that's not the questions they'll be thinking about. And you've got to remember, to quote probably another design person, that 99% of design is just the invisible stuff of everyday life. It's not spectacular. And if someone can automate that and not have to hire a designer and get a thing they saw that they liked somewhere else and copy their competitor's website, then why wouldn't you? There's no incentive not to. Sorry. This is my bag, by the way, just so you're ready. This is what I do. I rain on parades.
That's okay. So your turn.
I've got one more question, and that was about the next image that you had. So we often see the idea of open source as utopian. The fact that when every patent is public, when anyone can make anything that they could make and there's no intellectual property, that sounds utopian in that anyone could make anything. But the way you've put it, I was getting shades of dystopia in there. And I would hate to live in a world where I can't own a thing that I've made because I'm a designer and I like new product development. I like coming up with new ideas. How do you think of that dichotomy?
I think I agree with a lot of contemporary artists that the system of intellectual property and the way that artists are paid and supported is from another era, and that's the fundamentals of it. The opens. I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you. I don't feel that much authority to speak about it. But for instance, Holly Herndon has been doing some really interesting writing about what the future of intellectual property and ownership and reward for creative practice might look like. It does involve the B word, and you've got to sort of navigate that, and then blockchain, that's the B word, by the way. It does involve that, and you have to navigate that, but there seems to be something underneath it that's really good, and I think whether or not that's the solution, I think we could probably all agree that the current way, as anyone who's a designer has struggled in their career, the current way that creative practice is supported, rewarded, and celebrated is not sustainable, either ecologically or financially, and needs to change. And there is an optimistic part of me that says this might accelerate it. Now, it could accelerate it in a really bad way, and it could end up with 3 or 4 companies owning everything, as in music again, where you've just got a handful of people own all the rights. Or it could go a different way.
Can I say something about the patent land?
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be historically, like you said, in 10 years. I mean, I love this because it's also very machine, this is a scenario that I didn't do, but I'm thinking now. It's like I feel that we're gonna have nostalgia about machine-looking things, because this is, for me, is very machine-like. But now we're making all these like hyper-perfected. I already got bored of all the hyper non-robotic thing. So like music, again, that you're gonna have nostalgia about, that old sound of analog. Probably we're gonna have this kind of.
If you look at like teenage engineering, or like even the sort of obsession with watches again that people are having, there is a.
But we're gonna have a nostalgia about guns and not guns, like generative.
GANs.
GANs. The net. Yes. Like
Italians.
No, but I think we're gonna miss Markov chains and all this stuff. So
I think I was saying to you earlier, or someone earlier. I remember when I first started experimenting with machine learning in 2015, and it was 36 hours to get a 128 by 128 pixel image. That I was so happy with.
The hipster movement of AI is gonna come.
I love that.
Sorry, that's it.
Should we move on? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Nice. So I guess I'm next, because I've got the remote. That's my name, not a speculative scenario. Let's start with this one. It is an inconspicuous bus stop somewhere in Europe, by the looks of it. And this is where I show the fact that I'm a science fiction nerd. Has anyone watched Dune, the film, or the book? Had read the book?
Definitely.
So the idea is that in the image there, on the top you see you, the person, riding the sandworm, which is the AI, and the world is the world that runs on AI. It's actually an advertisement for University of Townshire, and there's a course in becoming an AI whisperer. The idea over here was, what do designers do when a lot of design is generated by AI? So it's very similar to the prompt generation idea, but because a lot of idea generation, image generation, concept generation can be done by all of these text generators and AI-based image generators, that means there's lots more free time for us as designers, which means we can be better at sense making. We can be better at parsing the data or looking at the data and seeing how to sense make off of it. Which means that we'll be able to be the masters of vivid description. I guess the microphone went away. The masters of vivid description is what I meant. So the idea is that you'd learn to speak to AI and you'd become an AI whisperer, almost like you have snake whisperers or snake charmers. You have AI whisperers. And masters in AI linguistics would come with, they'll be much more generalist in their approach. So they might happen with humanities and research. So people with deep knowledge about humanities can go along with AI linguistics. Or it might happen with business management or design process. And each of them would have their own sort of depth to it. None of this is prediction. All of this is provocation. So we are not saying this will happen. We are saying what should we do so that, do we think this is a preferable future? If yes, maybe we want to move here. If we don't think this is a preferable future, what should we change so that we don't get here? Or who is it preferable for? Is it preferable for us as designers? Or is it preferable for universities? Or who is it preferable for? So that's idea number one. Next up, we've got the Dime magazine. I'm sure all of us know the Dime magazine. The cover picture shows the AI, and you'll see the same AI in the three of them. That's Eliza, by the way. I speak of Eliza as if it were an actual child, because it is my child, and I will not hear anything otherwise. It's the ghost delivery machine that I write and draw every single week. But here we've got the cover feature saying how one designer and her AI designed the modern world. If you see the bio over there, there's another chapter there, or another write-up inside of the magazine that says the websites that you see, they're designed by AI, with content designed by AI, and images generated by AI, only to be seen by other AI on people's behalf. So it's like an AI Ouroboros. And that is very similar to what Tobias was talking about, where you have this general mundaneness, or what I wrote it down as, maybe we could call it the great online mediocrity. The fact that when so much of the content is generated by AI, there's a mundane aesthetic to everything. And here's one designer who's risen above it, which is why the designer and her AI have designed the modern world. So she knows the linguistics better than anyone else. That brings me to the third image, which is two different products. We've got the prompt encryptor on the left-hand side. So while writing prompts, you can write your own language in which you write prompts. So here's an encryption code called candy text. So everything that you write is written as candy, Kit Kat and Butterfinger and Skittles, etc. So you are speaking to your AI, but the prompts that you generate are not intelligible to anyone else because you're using candy text. So here's this device that you put on the top of your computer, and you type into that device, and you know what you're writing, and then it's interpreted by the computer, but there's a layer of encryption that only you understand, or anyone who understands candy text would understand. But in order to combat that, piracy exists anywhere, and it might exist in this world as well. So we have the prompt decryptor on the right-hand side. That's a device that you can connect to your prompt encryptor, and you can hack into it. And by hacking into it, you can decrypt it. And so that wherever there's an idea of creation, and the more we build up these walls, we'll also be able to pirate these things in ways that are not official, but then people will do it anyway. So that's the prompt encryptor and decryptor. Those are my scenarios.
Yeah, comments, Alexandra?
Yes. So can you hear me? Yes. Very nice. I have a question about. I have two questions, but I think I will start with the first one because it was also very close to something that I had in mind, and I think I will come back to you with a question as well. So when we think about these future studies that are indeed connected a lot about communication, but we do see that there are multiple domains that could actually connect to it. How do you see the admission of such a course looking like? And now we are just creating the whole thing, so you have it ready for when it's needed.
Voice for this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Super interesting. I think there would be a base of linguistics. Even now, when you see people making their portfolios for design masters or bachelors, there's a few of them that have done it for such a long time by themselves as teenagers in their own notebooks, and there's others who are getting into it maybe because they wanted to do engineering, but then they didn't end up getting into engineering, something to that effect. I think we'll see some of that here as well. So you will see 14-year-olds who are better prompt writers than anyone who's done it professionally, and vice versa. So the cap of it, the way you select people perhaps is going to be, again, through creativity. And in a similar way to how you have situational tests in design colleges right now, where you ask them, you put them in a situation, here's a situation, maybe you don't know, here's a prompt language, it's encrypted, how can you decrypt it? Maybe that's one way of doing it.
It's interesting. Sorry, do you have something else?
Yeah, please.
Well, I was going to say, the thought that strikes me is it's interesting that there's this renewed focus on language via AI, and of course Emily Bender, who was one of the authors of the Stochastic Parrots paper with Timothy Cabrew as a linguist, who was warning about the problem with AI being a misunderstanding by computer scientists of what language is and how it works, right? So the misunderstanding of how meaning is conveyed and constructed, and then reverse engineering the hysteria around ChatGPT and its ilk, all being about a misunderstanding of where meaning making occurs, and folks like Catherine Hales have written about that as well quite a lot. But it's interesting that in the context of thinking about design, both of you have come back to the critical bit of design is going to be mastery of language at some point, like mastery of written language. At the moment, and I was an educator, have been an educator for the last few years, you spend all this time talking to students and non-designers about how design itself is a form of language making and meaning making through making stuff and objects and interactions. And now our response to that is to go, we need to just get a handle on words again. We've forgotten how those work properly.
Forget 3D modeling, man.
Yeah. We don't need to know 3D modeling. And it's interesting that from both domains, the computer sciences are now really looking at language, because a lot of this stuff was called NLP until recently, natural language processing. They're looking at it. We're designers now talking about that, how important and mastery of. I loved your MA in vivid description, like as a brilliant idea that you're seeing past the medium and the practice and into the meaning making process.
But I was almost thinking this must have been less of a, maybe because I was always imagining this to be more of we're gonna study the prompt, the tactics and the theories, and we're gonna read into the prompt of some people to, when Tobias wrote this in order to generate the image, did he really want to use the word?
Yeah.
It's a bit like poetry, honestly. When you do like linguistics or poetry, you go and looking at the meaning of the word.
Imagine like a Salone in 10 years' time where you've got like the prompts of...
You prompts on the wall.
Rebaudengo prompts on the wall, which are like being studied by students.
Yeah, it's like, was that a misspell? Or was it ignorant, or was it intentional?
Critical intervention?
Yeah, was it just Italian?
Italian prompting's all in.
No, but for me it's interesting because if you're going to have this practice for like the practice phase of creating with, then you're going to have people studying how people are creating. So history of prompts 1, history of prompts 2, philosophy of prompts 1 and 2.
Advanced prompting.
Are we invoicing you for all this work that we're doing for you?
No, but what we were saying is interesting though, because it's like, it would be very easy to then say, just jump out and say, you know what? Actually, I was talking to like my cousin that she just started design, and she said, oh my God, they're making me study Illustrator and Photoshop. I really don't want to do it. And like, yeah, just, I don't want to show you my journey because otherwise you're done. But yeah, we have all this craft, and now we want to throw it away this fast.
Yeah.
Do we? Nah.
Some of us don't.
You saw the quality of my images. I'm getting better with prompt engineering. Sorry.
Another question? No, if you like.
I think just one thought that I had over that is what I've noticed, at least from people who are getting now in design, and I'm getting more close to the present now, is the fact that everyone, or at least people who are preparing for jobs or preparing for getting universities, they put a lot of emphasis on the hard skills. So I will go back to my ideas also what I said, that I think it's important for us also as practitioners and also people who talk about design to give a reminder that doing these things also requires some soft skills. Communication being one of them, but also communicating about who you are, how do you see design as a word. So it's equally, or I don't know exactly the balance, but for me it's equally important as the hard skills that probably won't go away. Don't worry, we'll see, or they transform because it's just an evolution. But very nice. Thank you.
Super. Simone.
Last one, yeah.
Hi, should I do it in character or?
Yeah.
Should we? Okay.
Do you want your costume? I got it.
Older me with the cane. So I'm ready. So before I get in there, I'm actually just wanted to bring a bit of because we're in Salone and we're talking about AI. I just want to bring you back some things I got during next year's Salone. So I got a preview, and this is kind of what I got. So these are the three numbers of Domus. So the one just before Salone of next year is kind of it's called Remix, the Remix area, which is kind of what also Tobias was talking about it. But this number is mostly about this wave of designers that are really excited about basically using letting the machine create for them, and it's kind of you have these algorithmic avant-garde, these like synthetic scinthographists that are taking over design, and basically it's the critiques that when I read this article, this number that we're talking about, is this anyway just surreal, gibberish, lorem ipsum design that comes only from things that existed before, or is it actually creating something new? And then in the number in May of next year, which is just after Salone next year, actually next year Salone there will be a lot of people that are going to be pissed off about it, especially here. So there is this neo-artisan movement that we still have like kind of craft-driven design in Italy, but they're going to just rebrand to neo-artisans, and they're going to resist the machine. And basically, in all this number, there is all this kind of design projects where they go back really to face the manual versus the automated. So this huge battle that is going to happen. Will manual ever beat the automated or not? And then in June, in the June edition, you can see there, this is like there was a really big niche in Alcova next year that you can find. There is this few design studios that they call themselves modern human design studios, vaguely inspired by Oyo Studio, vaguely about having man and machine in them. But there are some studios that are cooler than us. They actually have trees as part of design teams, rivers, dogs. But really, they're trying to, embrace this, rethinking. So not being pro, not being against, but kind of this weird. This guy is really weird, though. Anyway, he's touching a tree on one side and a server on the other. Just this image was generated by machine. Actually, and then in the last number, there is inside this really cool article. There is an interview by L.S. Olivero to the future self, actually to one of our bots. But I think what's interesting in here is that some brands are kind of jumping on this wave of rethinking what can we actually do with this generative stuff, and rather than just say let's automate stuff, is like let's actually use our history as a way to create something new. And actually, there Itala, which is a very forward-looking design company, is actually branding themselves as owning history, so creating a whole series of new products in between products from their masters, creating also a big discussion between then, are those really the masters? What's in between one master and the other? But they really started this new brand, kind of trained on history, curated by hand, shaped by fire. So the manualness in AI is still there. And there is this article I'm not going to read, but it's actually a future interview that we will give about
Just buying yourself work a year in advance.
Yeah. So this is all. This is like future shamelessness. But then also, this is for you for next year. This is the map, the generated map of Milano Design Week of 2024. It shows you all these new regions of Milano that are not really. Making a map of Milano, it took me a long time to generate this for no reason. But it's showing that there are 600 events, 1,000 humans, 300 AIs. You actually now have to have these little dots that says whether are they co-designer, are they just automated designer, are they just humans? But what's interesting is that new companies are coming in this field. Like today we have Google. Next year there's going to be NVIDIA with the end design space. You're also going to have Merriam-Webster and the MoMA doing a whole point about the language of design with the students from their faculty, OpenAI. Then there's going to be the No AI movement, having like a sit-in in Lambrate. And of course, the ADI, there's going to be, let's keep the craft and the manual in it. And of course, IKEA, they're going to have this co-design with nature because they're going to launch their first three influencer. So you can get this map on No, I'm joking. But those are kind of the thing I got in my swag bag from next year.
Nice.
Yeah. Tobias?
Simone. I mean, being earnest, like the thing that when I without being doomy, the interesting thing about AI or data science or so-called AI is the ability to extend the experiential register of being human, right? So this idea that we can't comprehend processes that are too slow, too fast, too long, too vast in scale. And so we're sort of stuck in the human sensorium of design as well, right? And if we look, one of the questions I've always wondered about design is, can it move beyond the sort of instrumental human scale of stuff, especially if we're tackling, massive problems like climate change and social inequality that require systemic thinking. So although the sort of saxophonist from Madness touching the tree with his hand on the server rack is sort of a bit silly, it's also indicative of this idea that there is a future of AI where designers are using it to be able to comprehend these things at much bigger scale and to understand, non-human senses, to be able to think about the way that a decision might play out over the next 1,000, 10,000 years, whatever it is, if it's sort of a high project way of thinking. And that's quite exciting, actually. That, you know, if that becomes the way it's used and delivered and developed, and the prompt engineering is the simple solution, but the other side of it is the development of designers who are engaging with AI as a way to augment their place in the world and to extend it, that's really exciting. That could be really cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think for me that's also, I think it's like I guess the like James Bridle was talking about the alienness of AI. I mean, at the first stage of when the first large language models that were created, you could really feel like you're interacting with a non-human intelligence, so something else. And the octopus might be, he was talking about a similar, like alien-like intelligence because it's very different than us. And I think, at least for me, but like what you're saying, I think what's interesting about this is that all the automation, the efficiency, and yeah, sure, but I think what's interesting is if you do collaborate with a definitely non-human intelligence, you can actually do something else. And if that intelligence is not shaped on human terms, but is shaped on, you know, river terms or dog term, then you might end up designing with very different point of view in mind. So,
yeah, I think exactly. And to go back to the stuff that Alexandra showed at the beginning, you know, that interface is very much a reduction of another mind into a human understanding. You've got sliders, you've got this sort of quite straightforward transactional interface. What does an AI start to look like if it is to enable a river to speak, right? And we were to design that interface.
But even like before, for me, what was cool about, like if you ever worked with the GANs, not guns, GANs. I'm gonna go
Just
into,
say G-A-N.
I'm gonna be like GN. Is that, so there were some tools that had this visualization of this ability for you to see things in space. Like, you know, you have one image and then another image, and then, you know, you have this infinite space. And then I read about it, and it's like, it's actually this thing that generates image is a 512 dimension space. It's a, what? You know, we can barely deal with 3. But that makes you think about how different and complex is the creation of that. And today, you know, these tools we have is like, prr, bloop, nice. But I think once you start to really get into these machines or understanding how they work, then you start to, you know, see that it's really is different. It makes you think differently as well as a designer. So that's why, I mean, I'm going to comment on myself. No, but what I'm saying, no, I just want to say, that's why I'm saying that I really hope more than propose that we will have the tools, whether it's sliders, whether it's new visualization, whether it's where we can actually still have craft in these processes, because otherwise it's going to be boring, lorem ipsum, blah, stuff that looks the same, and I don't know. I mean, luckily the Salon is going to solve it for us.
I mean, that goes to just a final thought on that. Was it goes to, there was an interview with I've forgotten the guy who founded Midjourney and David Holtz. Someone tell me who it is. You've all got phones. Look it up. I'll wait. No. Anyway, with him, and he was saying, you know, they built this incredible tool, the first Midjourney, and they released it on testers, and they went, well, you know, what's it for? And they said, well, you can have anything you can imagine. And they went, cool, can I have a dog? And they went, yeah, but you can have anything you can imagine. And they went, pink dog. And the point of it is that, like, the tool is no substitute for actually being able to be creative and critical and imaginative, right? You know, it's I'm not going to quote the Henry T. Ford thing, but it's the same problem, right? You're just able to faster and more efficiently produce a higher quality of crap than to actually to produce anything imaginative. Yeah. And I guess
it's a good starting point.
Yeah, but that's the concern. I mean, again, going back to the music analogy, at the other end of it is a vast proliferation of really interesting dynamic practices that will be at Salone next year. But in the middle is the dearth of just stuff that's just spun out really quickly without any sort of thought.
Yeah, it sounds like you as the human are the limit as opposed to the other way around. Which is why what I like about this particular one is that you have place for the C, the H, and the A, which is co-designed by an AI only and human designed, which is to say that in this future, there's place for everything. We're not saying it's going to be, I mean, they might be dominated by one faction over the other, but it is a plural future where you are going to have people who will resist and you are going to have people who will have figured out how to work efficiently with AI, and you are going to have the great online mundanity, or whatever we want to call it.
You explained it way better than me. Thank you. No, I'm joking. Yeah.
Okay, that was nice.
Is that the next
let's
slide?
end of it. Yeah. End of it. Great. Questions for you before opening to the audience. So this is for Alexandra. Domus Academy is extensively investigating how generative AI is changing the way we teach and do design. How might AI-based tools support or slow down designers in their creative process? That's a nice one.
So I think I touched a little bit about this topic in the presentation as well, but I think Domus Academy could do both. Also help the students, but also slow them down depending on what they want, as my colleagues were saying. But now, jokes aside, I think I see two aspects here. One is actually in the courses that we have, and now I'm talking about the near future, because we are there already. We cannot lie. We cannot hide anymore. We are not in 3 years. It's just tomorrow. We can actually help designers, or the way I see it, we can help designers train more their critical thinking, also the skills of communication, as I said, so also have a big part on the soft skills, but as well as trying to encourage the students to create their own tools to do that. So as designers, we can of course help other people or solve their problems, but we can also help ourselves, and I think this is how entrepreneurs start, or innovation in general. We have an issue that we have a problem with and we try to solve it, and when you are a designer, this is a skill that we can take advantage of, and universities is a place where you can experiment, so students can be encouraged to create their own solutions to slow down, or I would expect them to actually fasten their process.
Okay, cool. That was a cool one, yeah. For Tobias, how we can ensure that the use of AI in design is approached critically and thoughtfully, with attention to aesthetic, ethical, and equitable implications?
I think the same way you approach critical practice in anything, whether it's in ceramics or AI or UX, is you really have to understand the tool, who built it, why they built it that way, what are they trying to get you to do by having designed it that way. And it's the same in, if I was teaching Photoshop or Illustrator, I'd do the same. Why have they put these particular tools to be easily accessible and hidden the others? Why these filters the default and not others? Why those preset gradients and not others? What are the decisions that's been made? And if we're going to do things like prompt engineering or whatever, then there is a degree of having to understand how does a neural network work? Like, how does that prompt get translated? How is one of these models drawing inference and comparison from a set of terms and then doing some probabilistic modeling to come up with something? That's like as old as the hills. The best person on that was Philip Arger's critical technical practice paper in '94, where he sort of talked about the need for AI professionals to do that as well. And I think that's the critical thing. And any good design education would be doing that. It wouldn't just be going, here's a way to make your life more efficient. It would say, here's a tool. It is better than this tool in some ways, but worse in others. You need to figure it out, do some unpicking, try and hack at it, figure out where the edges and the limits and problems are with it, and then figure out what your relationship with it is. And I think, with practitioners then when they're going out in the world, and at work we're talking about this at the moment and how we start to use these tools, it's just being really clear what you did when you're talking to people and say, this bit was the generative bit, and this bit, and then that's what we did with that content. And this is how we made that set of decisions to get to that thing, and just being really clear about it and open about it, I think.
Cool, thanks.
No worries.
For Viraj, Domus Academy is reflecting on including a more formal approach to speculation and imagination in its educational initiatives, and what challenges do designers face in speculating about alternative realities when relying on pattern-based intelligence?
We tend to stick to the extremes because we like extremes quite a lot. We think something would come and take away all our jobs, or something will come and it'll be entirely utopian and we'll have this glorious future where AI and us work together. When we get to the reality of it, it's always going to be a shade of dystopia here, a shade of utopia here. It's going to be all of these things together in very complex, layered ways. When it comes to speculation with AI, if we don't think of it as the thing that will destroy all jobs, or the thing, so for example, if we were to draw a parallel with digital photography, has it killed photography as a business? To an extent, from a perspective, yes, but then we still have photographers who have their own place. We still have artistic photography as a practice. And I guess it's the same with AI. If it is, it may make some jobs different, but it's up to us how we use the tool in order to progress. So portrait artists still exist, despite the fact that we can take portraits anywhere. And so that's one parallel that I was thinking of. And then, just to go back to what Tobias was saying, just critical thinking and seeing what's the place of these things in our lives and what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So design for the outcome rather than designing for the process or designing for using the tools.
Okay. In this case, we're also thinking to the pattern-based, let's say, intelligence, also as a way of getting always the same sort of result, always the same stuff. There was also, in this sense, I can generate something that is new when you start from a data set that there is, let's say, a record of the past and all the stuff we already know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I do follow a few Instagram profiles where they have mid-journey generated images, but they're just so absolutely unique, and they're nothing like anything else that you've seen before. So clearly someone's thinking about how to write those prompts rather than just writing the thing that everyone would write. So there is a level of mastery there as well, and there's a level of uniqueness that can be achieved there as well to go beyond the patterns.
Can I say something as well? Quick?
Sure.
Is that all right? Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
There's a really interesting conversation happening in parallel to all this, which is about, this is all happening in a geopolitical economic context in which Silicon Valley is declining in power and viability. The social era is sort of over. The profits are hitting a roof. New sign-ups are going. We've seen what's happening with Twitter, the attack on TikTok that's come from, mostly from Silicon Valley lobbyists trying to carve out the business for their particular bit. So there's a decline in that, and we also saw this thing called the tech clash, which started in about 2017 off the back of Snowden, and then later the Cambridge Analytica revelations, and this distrust of these systems and these technologies. And what that's also throwing into light is an increasing, and what I'm really enjoying when I speak to people, is an increasing resistance to determinism. So an increasing question of this idea of this will happen or this will happen, either positively or negatively. And anyone who's following this story has seen the resurgence of the idea of speculative ethics, that even if you're saying something negative about change, you're still reinforcing the idea that change is somehow inevitable or is coming. And in design, for anyone who's really studying design, we're also seeing the idea of pluriversal design enter, right? So this idea that the design as a universalizing force is sort of a problem and needs to be broken up and appreciate the different ways that people interact with their material cultures. So there's a really interesting turn away from these utopia-dystopia binaries, away from any determinism, in fact, and that's why the last point in that fictional manifesto was a twist on Frederick Jameson's famous quote about the present being the determined past of inevitable futures, to say that actually there's an increased focus on the fractured nature of the present and the way that people experience things very differently. The introduction of Dolly, for instance, a small design studio in South Africa would be very different than it would be for someone who's in Milan and has the privilege to come here and exhibit and show their stuff. So that appreciation of the end of that deterministic framing of a universal, this technology will ... positive or negative, is actually quite interesting and exciting. I don't know what that starts to manifest as, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. I had in mind this article on The Guardian from James Bridle, I don't remember how to pronounce that, where it was probably be more on the deterministic way of it, where I'm saying, so we are using this AI that at the end of it is gonna be trained on stuff we have already produced, and then they resell it to us. And so they produce profit on stuff that we already produced it before them to be able to produce it once more. And this whole idea of the pattern-based knowledge and repetition was quite interesting. So like 2 days or 3 days ago, article. Okay, last question for Simone.
Good luck.
The last, please.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I mean, if the first three I got ready, it was like
He's finished his beer already.
it's water.
Yeah, no, but he's finished his beer.
He's
We didn't
finished
get
his
one.
beer.
Yeah.
That's unfair. Anyway,
Yeah, just the last one, then you can have beers. Okay. What are some potential implications of incorporating AI into the design process, such as the impact on ideas' originality or the potential of decreased human agency in design process?
yeah. No, so I'm gonna respond without responding to your question, like people do always. No, but one thing I want to say is like, so there is already an impact. There will be an impact. We're already impacted because we're talking about it, and so we cannot go back. And students today are already using these tools to do stuff instead of drawing themselves. So I mean, it's done. The chat is out of the bag, and that was very
The cat is on the table. Yeah.
very dead joke. It came out, but I was like, damn, I said it.
There's translation that's unfortunate.
There is
from the Italian, yeah. to the English.
But no, for me, what I hope in a way is not character. No, is that I really would like that we would, because all of us were really talking about the tool, the AI. I would really like that we would shift the discussion to intelligence. Like, I don't know, I think the way we're trying to do it, because we've been working with this stuff for the last 2 years, it's like I'm really bored already of all the tools. And so I'm just interested in like, okay, this is happening, it's changing the way we are designing agency. We have agency still, we're gonna have it, but at the end it's a material. It's a tool and a material. So we're talking about the tool, but we don't talk about the material, like what intelligence, not only what can I do with intelligence, but what type of intelligence I can design. What can we break down this thing that we're gonna have chatbots that talk in a human way, that we're gonna have written, chat-like. Can we break down all these, in a way, deterministic things? When we had Google Home, Alexa's, all these like the kind of chatbots, they had to speak. They were humans. Why? Now we have AI chatbots. We need to write to them. Why? So for me, it's like, okay, we have these things. They are tools, but we can make new ones. And with this stuff, we can make very different things that we don't know yet. Like, why don't we have bored ChatGPT? Why don't we have, I don't know, like very bird-like intelligences in the house? Now we can build all of these, but we're very fixated on, is this gonna take my job, and is this gonna make my work more efficient? And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but can we do something else? Like, it's really, for me, it's like, I would like to start to talk about intelligence as the material for a design course, and being critical about the meaning of intelligence in a product, the metaphor of that intelligence, the way of interacting with the intelligence. How much is it intelligent? Why? Does it always have to be super intelligent? And, like there was this old article from Berg. Now, there was for me, one of the best design studios that ever existed. They were talking about designing things that were as smart as a puppy. Maybe that's what we need to do. Like, we just need to do things that we can understand. We can, figure out languages to interact with them. They can make mistakes. We can make mistakes. But, that's a nice metaphor. That's a different way of thinking about it. And I really hope that, especially in the context of education for the future, that we're not going to jump onto the tools, but we're going to jump into thinking about intelligence and why do we have it, both in the process and in the output of design. Oh, I got really angry at the end. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could be a pig dog, as you were saying.
Oh, yeah.
Pink dog, yeah.
There resonates a lot with an article on The Atlantic about this Martin bot on chess.com, the website where you play a chess game, and they say this is done on purpose because it is not smart at all, but it's there just to lose a game. You can also win some games, but it's just there to remind you that you can beat him and being smarter than him. That's on purpose.
Lovely.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have another question for you.
For me again?
Yeah, for all of you.
Ah, okay.
And then it's audience time. Let me see if we have time. Yeah, why not?
That's out of control.
Okay, so what steps can an academic institution take to prepare students for the impact of generative AI? You already said it's already there. And how does it foster a culture of exploration and experimentation, considering the potential benefits and risk of incorporating AI into the design process? So just 1 minute, let's say each. We're gonna go first.
I mean, it's quite easy for me. It's like question everything that anyone says about it. Dan McKillen, who's a very good scholar at Goldsmiths, put it brilliantly. He said any future is speculative, and that the present harms are empirically demonstrated. You know, there's loads of evidence of injustices and harms that have been done by AI, whether it's deaths by Teslas or people who have been sentenced wrongly in automated processes or misdiagnosed, whatever it is. Any claim to future benefit is speculative, and so just question everything. I mean, it could be true, could be real, but yeah, I'd question any claim and not take any claim at face value as a student. I'd advise the students, yeah.
I guess from my side, see what AI is good at, things like generation, so let it generate. You can't be as fast as it is, as quick as it is in creating a volume of ideas, a volume of images, but then the layer that comes before and after it, what to feed into it and what to take from it, how to parse it, how to prioritize things, and how to synthesize things into something that's meaningful. That's up to us. So exploit it in wise ways, I guess, like any technology.
I think I would like to just give an advice of something that I also did when I was a student, and it is to experiment with everything. And now I would say to see AI as a method, or as, let's say, design thinking is for UX, but having AI incorporated in this, or having as a generative method for ideas, or even for the process or research. But I would say be open, and also if you don't like it, this is also an option. But be open and try to experiment with a lot of tools, AI being one of them, and see how you end up with it, if you like it or not. Yep.
Don't get lazy.
And don't
no,
get
I mean,
lazy.
in some way, yeah. I mean, that's for me the scariest thing would be that this just becomes like the fastest way to achieve outputs, and then you just end there, you know, because like a lot of the design outputs we had to do as in this pre-world when you have to draw was creating images, creating description things. So I hope even both as a student but also as tutors like to push the bar to the next level, so that you can't just, you know, you have to actually then think about it or do something else beyond this, because otherwise if we get that lazy, then I'm scared, like, I don't know, like, I guess a lot of us, even for this panel, maybe one of the first things we did was like, you know, can you help me write 3 scenarios about the future of it, right? And then I said, like, damn it, come on. No, because then it's very easy. It's kind of addictive in a way, you know, it's this kind of very fast gratification that and we're, you know, humans are basically, we're gratification-based animals. So, I mean, this is very easy to do, and so it's going to be a fight about that, really, about our nature to just be selectively and evolutionary lazy at stuff, and design in everything else. But yeah, so just don't get lazy, or if you do, then I mean, bye.
Thanks. Okay, so thank you again. Thank you.